This book does not intend to insult race and religion. This book is an academic scientific study discourse, to be used as material for discussion and thought. History. Nothing can change the events that have happened in the past. Then who is responsible, if all historical records about our ancestors are wrong? Not everyone learns about history. But everyone must learn from history. Our existing historical records do not have to be sacred and absolutely true. History is a continuous dialogue between the present and the past to behave in the future. There is no single eternal truth about the meaning of past events, and neither is the truth eternal. The root of the chaos in the history of this country is the Saka year, which is calculated from the year 78 AD. Take a look at this. The old consensus, based on limited evidence, may no longer be considered historically valid in explaining specifics, cause and effect, motivation and importance. Past interpretations may change, in response to new evidence. New questions that question the evidence, based on new perspectives that are gained over time and the advancement of scientific attainment. It is likely to be refuted, objectively, based on an academic study of studies based on advanced science. Historiography. Historians work in the formation of public opinion. Historians have produced a collection of history books, then readers are always stuck on the status quo. Thus, the historian's professional paradigm is manifested as a denunciative attitude towards all forms of historical revisionism. Either from fact or interpretation, or both, are different from the single form of historical paradigm writing. Thomas Kuhn. The social sciences are characterized by several paradigms stemming from the tradition of claims, counterclaims, and debates on the foundations of research, of the resistance to revised historical works that present a comprehensive historical narrative. Revisionism is a natural process of history itself, works to restore the truth of the past, to change the future to be better. Most of the world's historians revise and update their descriptions of the distorted record of personal, ethnic, national, and interest subjectivity. The philosopher Karl Popper wrote, "Each generation has its own problems, and therefore, has a strong interest in historical events and its own perspective. And every generation has the right to view and reinterpret history in their own way. After all, we study history because we are interested in it. But history cannot serve any valid basis if, under the influence of the notion of subjectivity. And we shouldn't think that our point of view is also right. That we have reached a level of objectivity that allows it to present past events actually occurred. Historical revisionism is the means by which historical records, existing histories in society, as understood in their collective memory, continually incorporate new facts and interpretations of events commonly understood as history." Historian James M. McPherson wrote, "Revision is the source of life, of historical knowledge. The historian's endless search is only for understanding the past. Revisionism is what makes history important and meaningful, to build tomorrow. Without revisionism, we might just be stuck with the reconstructed image of subjectivity. Without the revisionist historian, who has researched new sources and asked new nuanced questions, we would still be mired in one of the stereotypes of meaning. Indonesia needs a historical revisionist who rewrites the historical facts of its ancestors. The writers of historical records that have written so far, are they dominant, namely the fact that they want to rule this country. Cut off his past knowledge and master. So, historical records that exist today do not have to be status quo and sacred to be absolutely correct. Whoever cannot learn from the 3,000 years is not making use of his intellect. And the only thing we learn from history is that we don't really learn from it. Let's take a look. History. In English it means the human past. Another word that comes close is Geschichte, which means it happened. Historical research also depends on historiography, or historical perspectives, which differ from one another. Historiography is the science that examines and decomposes historical information based on belief systems and philosophies. The word history, literally Arabic word saharatun, which means tree, while in Arabic itself history is called date. The word, history, is closer to the Greek word, historia, which means, knowledge, or intelligent people. Indonesian people, calls, history, not with the word, date, or calls, trees, not by, Saharatun. Because, the word, history, in Indonesian culture is the depiction of, and tact, about the origin of the, roots to branches of incident records. The Indonesian people are more straightforward and capable in defining and describing what, history, is, although the documentary records are stored in, Leiden. Other thing, history is written by the victors. That is, often the, winner, of a human conflict becomes more powerful than the conquest, therefore. It is better able to leave historical traces and, perversion of historical facts, according to what they feel is right. In 1960, historians began to abandon historical narratives that were, nationalistic epic, and chose to use a more, realistic, chronological narrative. The scientists of, postmodernism, strongly question its validity and it is necessary to conduct a historical study. Richard J. Evans, a professor of modern history from Cambridge University in England, wrote a book entitled, In Defense of History. Namely, a book on defense of history defends the importance of historical studies for society. According to them, history is merely a personal and subjective interpretation of existing historical sources. Engineer Sukarno, the proclaimer of Indonesian independence, was famous for his quote, "Never forget history." It would be useless to quote Sukarno if what we understand and do not forget is history, written by foreigners with the motivation of an interest. This is the historical record of our ancestors. Tar or in turn, we color or color India. And notes to the Jaya of this nation to be lost. After we agree to count the beginning of the Saka year, all the inscriptions begin in 78 AD. The year of Saka is written on all the inscriptions starting from 78 AD, all historical records before that year are lost. Websites in this country are based on one of two Indian religions only by distinguishing whether there is a statue sitting cross-legged. Borobudur in Gunadarma's architecture was built in the 8th century AD only based on estimates. All pre-Islamic kingdoms are called Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms. Their previous ancestors embraced animism, dynamism. Animism, from the Latin anima, or spirit, is belief in spirits and spirits, believing that every object, cave, tree, large stone, has a soul that must be respected so that the spirit does not disturb humans. Dynamism is worship of the spirits of ancestors who have died living in certain places, such as big trees. Nothing, the original teachings of the previous Indonesian archipelago and up to now adhere to animism dynamics. Offerings are offerings, Bibelian. Not feeding spirits or other creatures, offerings are a form of respect. Respect is not worship. The literacy of the word, praying, or semba, proves that the ancestors of the archipelago had already revered to God before the religion of immigrants, with different mentions in every remote area in Indonesia. Literacy of the word, prayer, semba, is formed from two syllables. Worship, or semba, and word, hyang, is a word which shows the understanding of the absolute, God. The one Almighty God, single hyang widi, God in the Kaharingan teachings is called Yustu Halatala. In West Kotawaringan it is called Sanghyang Dewata. And Raniang Hatala Langit is understood as the greatest power. Talatang culture in Sulawesi rests on 5 beliefs: believe in existence. Dewata Sua is the title of God Almighty. Believe in the end of the world, there will be a day later. Believe in the existence of recipients. Lantara as the holy book of Talotang worship to the god Sua. Marapu culture on the island of Sumba, calling God Almighty by Na Mapadikangu Tau, creator of man. Na Mawulu Tau Na Maji Tau, who shapes and makes humans. Na Endiawa Tumbu Na Endiawa Dedi, who grows up and who makes. Na Mapadikangu Awangu Tana, creator of heaven and earth. Batak culture, calling the Almighty, Mulahadi Na Balone. Call prayer with Samba Hyang. Mulahadi Na Balone, which gave Batara Guru wisdom, judicial law, royal law, knowledge, and the ability to control the destiny of mankind. Culture of the Asmat, Papua tribe. Recognize three world concepts, namely, Ao Kapanmi, the present realm of life. Dampu Ao Kapanmi, the realm of resting spirits who have died. Safar, heaven, life after death. Sundanese culture, 5 philosophical foundations of life for Sundanese teachings. The white light in the east is called Purwa, the place for Hyang Iswara. The red light in the south is called Daksina, the place for Hyang Brahma. The yellow light in the west is called Pasima, the place for Hyang Mahadeva. The black light in the north is called the north, the place for Hyang Wisanu. All colors of light in the center are called Madhya, the place of Hyang Siwa. The original basic philosophy of our ancestors, Dharma Dhamma, originated in Svarnadvipa, dating back thousands of years before Christ, perfectly recorded in Bali underlies the growth of Buddhism, with his figures Siddhartha Gautama 563 to 483 BC and Jainism, Mahavira in 549 to 477 BC. Then in the 9th century, a new religion based on Veda was born to distinguish neither the two nor Islam in India. This name was labeled on the original teachings of the archipelago Nusantara, Indonesia. I asked, not to change history. When did the previous missionaries of India come to remote parts of this country? What and which cultures initiated the sacred rituals of Tawaf and Tahannuts? Namo Aryatara. We are Aryan. It's time for history to be considered sacred. Will fall by the results of science that clarify previous historical records. And no one should be surprised by this phenomenon. Our ancestors were the Aryan race. The latest study, led by geneticist David Reich of Harvard University, was published in March 2018, and 92 scholars from around the world in the disciplines of genetics, history, archaeology, and anthropology. This study shows that there are two major deep migrations to India. Last 10,000 years. 1. Out of Africa, migrants who have reached India around 65,000. Zagrossian mixed with the previous population in India as early as 7000 to 3000 BC gave birth to the Harappa civilization. 2. After 2000 BC, came immigrants Shaitya, Sakya, Sakas, Arya. They brought earlier basic Sanskrit from Sanskrit. These new cultural practices such as sacrificial rituals, all of which form the basis of early Hindu, Vedic culture, are what are called Dharmic, Dharma teachings. 1,000 years earlier, the people, Ross Aryan, also went to Europe, replaced and mingled with the farmers there, gave birth to a new culture and spread the Indo-European language. Other genetic studies have proven that there are many nations who migrated to India, originating from Southeast Asia, strengthened by the large number of speakers of Austro-Asian languages. That the Aryans were not the first inhabitants of India, and the Dravidian, Harappan civilization existed long before their arrival. This means that the Aryan nation or Vedic culture was not the only source of civilization in India, and its earliest sources were elsewhere. The true Dravidian. Their ancestors are Indian. They have campaigned to change the school curriculum and remove every word mentioning Aryan immigration from history books. The writing above is quoted from Tony Joseph, the author of Early Indians, The Story of Our Ancestors and Where We Came From, published by Juggernaut. The Aryan race is Shitya. The Kaka or Saka nation of the Indonesian archipelago advanced earlier. Historians classify the nations that exist in the world, among others. The Jawi, people who descended the Kaka people, namely 1. Jawi, not Javanese. 2. Madayu, Mada. Medes, Madyan, Midian, Media. 3. Cambyses, Greek Kambuja. 4. Scythia, Kaka Aryan, Aryan race. The Kaka people of the archipelago conquered Raja Salivahana India in 78 AD. This year was the beginning of the year in which the Indian Saka year began. The Kaka Empire is centered in the archipelago. Dynasty Surya leaves thousands of inscriptions with the number of Kaka years, and big mistake if the year in all the inscriptions is counted from 78 AD. Many large groups of Scythians or Saka people also migrated to Central Asia, Eastern Europe and Northern Anatolia around 3100 BC. Sakas equals Scythians, migration to Eastern Europe and Northern Anatolia via Pontic steppes since Vedic times after Mahabharata Wars 3162 BC. Dharmic teachings. Brought by the Kaka, Sakas, Sakya, Shaitya, Aryan recorded at Borobudur with literacy of the word, Mahachakya, developed in the plains of India, underlying the three teachings and one of the Jainism, with the character, Mahavira. Mahe means great or great and great, Kakya is the people or nation of Kakya or Sakya, Kaka, Saka. The words, Svarga, and Kusaladharmabhahana in the bas-reliefs of Borobudur prove the original teachings of the archipelago, Dharmic. Before the New Order era, two religions from India should be an alternative choice. The official state religion is also labeled, in Borobudur and other sites, only by distinguishing the presence-absence of the statue sitting cross-legged. The philosophy of Dharma is perfectly recorded in Balinese culture and is fully illustrated in Borobudur. Both are not based on one of the two religions in India. But the philosophy recorded in both of them underlies the three religions that grow there. Namo Bhagavatyai Aryatarayai. It is in the name of the Aryan people in this land that the Aryan race was born, spread to 3/4 of the earth carrying Dharmic teachings. The technological advances that have been achieved by a civilization should bring the progress of mankind who were in its time, as well as technological advances that should also be able to re-examine all historical records that have been done in the past, which is possible to record history at the time. Previously experienced imperfection. The need for this book to be made is as a trigger for all of us so that the Indonesian nation does a review and searches for answers to all its historical records, because there is no historical record that explains the civilization that occurred in the archipelago in the century before Christ or the prehistoric period. While many fossils have been found in the oldest sites on Earth or in the Indonesian archipelago. This is the basis of the writing of this book, with the hope that institutions that are competent for recording the history of the Indonesian nation will carry out research and re-investigation of the history that has been written specifically about Borobudur. In this book, the author is not and intends to corner, or is not defaming the beliefs and teachings of a religion. This book is a discourse to scientists. The author hopes that there will be clarification efforts that will be made by the authorized institution to carry out research studies and record the complete history of the Indonesian nation. And approaching perfection, I hope this book will be one of his considerations. This is a fact of our history which is not written and published in reverse. Book, Maha Prajnaparamita Sastra. About Sariputra and his guru Sanjaya, written by Nagarjuna in the Maha Prajnaparamita literature, treatise on the virtues of wisdom. A Brahmin from Suvarnadvipa named Kin Fa Suvarnaksa came and met Upatisya, Sariputra, asking him where he came from. He replied that he was from Suvarnadvipa. In Kin Chio, Suvarnadvipa, there was a king named Kin Cho, Suvarnapati. He died and was going to be cremated. He has a son named Kyo Lu To Kolita. His family name is Ta Mo Kaenlian Mahamad Galyayana. Sariputra was born in a Brahmin family of his friend Riparaputra, whose intelligence was extraordinary. At the age of 17 years had all over to the scientist, Dharmic, Veda. He studied under one of the 6 great non-Buddhist masters named Sanjaya. He met with the help of Asaji, later became one of his top 10 disciples and was renowned for his wisdom and learning. Take a look at this. Chinese pilgrim Yi Xing, 635–713, left his country for the former Kin Chio, Kinti Golden Land, Svarnadvipa, Indonesia. Yi Xing, called Srivijaya Pho Che or Che Li Pho Che, to learn not to become a Buddhist missionary. Svarnadvipa, Indonesia, not India, is the starting point of learning resources for the principal principles of Dharma, Dhamma, and this is the leading figure of Indonesian men who pioneered Dharmic to the land of India. Sanjaya, Sariputra, Dharmadasa, Dharmapala, Suvarnaksa, Madgalyayana, Svarnadvipa Dharmakirti, Kri Janayasa or Dapunta Hyang. Dharmadasa 700–620 BC, Dharmapala 670–580 BC, Suvarnadvipa Dharmakirti 610 BC 520 BC, Kumarila Bhatta I 618–540 BC, Adi Sankara 569–537 BC. They are Indonesian sons, pioneers of Dharmic in Indian lands. It's strange. Why aren't there any of our history books, which wrote this? Why write backwards? That the indigenous culture and sites are based on it, India. Dharmic, Dharma, Dhamma, is the main philosophical concept of our ancestors that underlies the growth of three Indian religions, Buddhism, Jainism and Hinduism in India. Sourced from and originated from the previous Indonesian archipelago. The basic philosophy of Dharma, Dhamma underlies the growth of his Buddhism, with his character Siddhartha Gautama, 563 to 483 BC, and underlies the Jainism of his character named Mahavira in 549 to 477 BC. Then the 9th century AD was born, Hindu India, to distinguish neither of them are Muslim, they're either Sangharama or the place of study, Dharma. Central Sangharama at Svarnadvipa, named Dharma Phala. Sangharama branch in Javadvipa Vana Chaka Phala is now published named Borobudur. Sangharama branch in Bihar, India, Nalanda. Built by King Pala descendants of the Sailendra dynasty 427 AD, Indonesia in the complex area of Muara Takus site. In this area there was once the beginning of the Dharma, Dhamma primary philosophy study center. Central Sangharama named Dharma Phala. A figure named Dapuntahiyam Sri Jayanasa echoed the teachings of Dharma, Dhamma to the archipelago. Brought sages to the land of Java as well as Bali, among them the Rishi Guru Markandraya. In the era of the archipelago kingdom, Majapahit saved Dharma to Bali. Pajajaran advised and prohibited anyone from collecting taxes. Then in the pre-New Order era, two religions from India were obliged to be an alternative choice of the official state religion, and one of them was labeled in Borobudur. So, all sites as well as original teachings in the archipelago are not based on one of the two Indian religions, but what is still being depicted on the Borobudur site is also recorded in Bali, which is the basis for the growth of the three religions there. The basic philosophy of Dharma, Dhamma is the teachings of the ancestors of the ancient Indonesian archipelago which colored India, not the reverse. The seeds grow into shoots and the shoots are not seeds. Truth will not be lost by drowning it. The submerged seeds now grew into flowers giving off their fragrance. Sood straighten the historical record of his nation. Let's take a look. The source of this article is based in the English translation of the travel notes of Xuanzang, Haiyan, Sang 602-664, ad by Samuel Beale in 1884. Haiyan, Sang wrote, "To the east there is a Sangharama and in the middle of the Amra forest is an old foundation wall. This is where Bodhisattva Asa Asga composed sastra called Hinyang Shing Kiao. Southwest of the city 8 or 9 li is a rock that resides in Naga. The Tathagata leaves its shadow here. This is tradition, no shadow remains visible. Beside it is a stupa built by the king, about 200 feet high. Near this is a sign on which the Tathagata walks to and fro, and also the stupas, disciples suffering from illnesses, by praying here are mostly healed. Sakya's law becomes extinct. This will be the last region in which it will endure. Therefore from the highest to the lowest all who enter the borders of this region are deeply moved to tears, before they return. To the northeast of the Naga residence is a large forest. After passing about 700 li we crossed the river. And heading north we arrived at the town of Kia Shi Pulo Kasapura. The city is 10 li with rich and happy inhabitants. On the side of the city is the old Sangharama, which has only the foundation walls. It is here that the Dharmapala Bodhisattva refutes the arguments of the heretics. Pay attention to Dharmadasa 700 to 620 BC has Dharmapala students 670 to 580 BC become teachers of Suvarnadvipa Dharmakirtis 610-520 BC. They were the pioneers of Svarnadvipas, Dharmak. They are at the locations mentioned and recorded by Haiyan Sang 602-664 ad. Pay attention to the word in the writing of the note that means. The Tathagata leaves its shadow here. It is tradition that there is no shadow residue. The location that Haiyan Sang meant is the only equinox at the Muara Takus site. This nearby 200-foot-high stupa is a sign on which the Tathagata walks to and fro. This is the site, Muara Takus, where the Brahmin perform the ritual, Pradaksina Prasawya, movement around the site. Other thing. At this time an ancient wall was found, the outer fence 2 layers, is the main complex where the teachers live. Shanga Kirti, teacher and other parts. Northeast main gate complex. East, 400 steps there is a building made of mantra training wood. West where there is learning, Kolam Sakti or Tobek Sati. Southeast, the second level learning place. Southwest of third level student residence. Northwest of the hermit Topo, Kanyago place. North the complex outside the embankment across the Paudaman River, cemetery is divided into 1. What is not burned by fire? 2. The fire does not burn on the body. 3. The residence of the dignitaries in 8 corners of the coordinates of the holy city, a radius of 4 square kilometers which is in the 9-layer fence of the embankment fortress. Then it is proven true what is seen and recorded by Xuanzang, Haiyan Sang 602-664 m also It Shing 689-695 m who lived for 5 years in Svarnadvipa at the Dharmic Learning Center. Nalanda, in Bihar, India was founded in 427 AD in the wake of Raja Phala dynasty Sailendra of Svarnadvipa. This is a university branch in Svarnadvipa named Dharma Phala, as well as Sangharama branch in Java. Vwana Chaka Phala is now known as Borobudur. Kri Janayasa, Dapunta Hyang brought Dharma and the Arshas to the land of Java as well as Bali. Among his teachers Arki Markandraya and Bali now perfectly preserves the main philosophy of our ancestral foundation, Dharmic, which underlies the growth of his 3 major religions in India. So the labeling so far collapsed about the original teaching sources of the archipelago as well as its all sites, situs. Another story about the center of the puja in the former holy city complex in Muaratakus. A group of uncontrolled elephants circling the Muaratakus site in Kampar Riau Svarnadvipa, Indonesia. Why did it happen? This Tawaf elephant is not only done once, humans also used to do this here. Follow the story. In 1935, F.M. Schnitger, a Dutch scientist who is a conservator of the museum at Palembang, explored Muaratakus forest, on the banks of the Kampar Kanan River. It's been a week since we camped in the forest of Muaratakus located in Kampar. The river curves around the equator like a large snake scroll. I just found on the north wall that surrounds the temple building must be cleaned and measured, he said as he spread the sleeping mat on the ground and lay down. It was quiet here, the full moon shone with light, the crickets sang and their voices mingled with the murmuring of the river, past midnight when I woke up with a start. At that instant, from the forest there was a roar. We heard the roar of an elephant coming down from the misty Mount Suliki, crossing the river, the elephant, slowly approaching then. The elephants were seen walking around the temple, clockwise. After walking around, the elephants were silent, lingering around the temple then knelt down. Yes, when the full moon shines, the elephants cross the river and go to the holy shrine, then they gather around and around, round the tall tower. I see firsthand, said F.M. Schnitger. Out of curiosity about the story above. Once upon a time a Thai person came to bring an elephant from his country to Muaratakus. The elephant immediately went into overdrive and didn't want to be brought back to Thailand. This is a real thing. In the 4th century AD, Chinese students, pilgrims recorded what they saw at the Muaratakus site, including the following. In 399 to 414 AD, Fa Hien on a journey in Svarnadvipa noted, following the river Po Nai, is the river Panay, Kampar, in a place where the students had lived there and made movements, walking in circles, surrounding the tope. Stupa are also 4 teachers sitting in 4 corners. In this place the tower has been erected. In 602-664 AD, Haiyan Sang recorded what he saw in Svarnadvipa. Beside it was a stupa built by the king, about 200 feet high. Near this there is a sign where the Tathagata is walking to and fro. It Shing 671-695 AD, study here. Pay attention. What place actually is the site? Muaratakus, in Svarnadvipa, in the past. This is the figure of the previous Indonesian male figure. Forerunner of Dharmic. His ancestors were Dapunta Hyam Sri Jayanasa, Kadachuan Kri Vijaya, in Svarnadvipa. Dharmadasa 700 to 620 BC. Dharmapala 670 to 580 BC. Suvarnadvipa Dharmakirti 610 to 520 BC. Kumarila Bhatta I 618 to 540 BC. Adi Sankara 569 to 537 BC. Moksartham Jagahita Yasya iti Dharma. The meaning. Dharma aims at attaining spiritual happiness and well-being of physical life. This is the main basic philosophy of the previous Indonesian ancestors, Dharma, Dhamma. The sacred ritual, Dharma, between Purwadaksina, Pradaksina rotates to the right clockwise in the understood towards main Swaloka and Prasawiya. Turn left counterclockwise towards Berloka Nista. This is the original ritual of the ancestors of the Indonesian nation, Dharma, in the unity of meaning reinforcing words such as, Kusala Dharma Bahana. The literacy of this word is recorded in the bas-reliefs of Borobudur panel number 138. This is not a word and philosophy from India. Moksartham Jagaditaya, the happiness of the afterlife, and Moksa, spiritual contemplation, the path to attaining Moksa. Visualized on top of Borobudur named Tapa Brata Upasana, Kanyago, this is not a statue of the Agung Mulia figure of India. The original ancestral philosophy of the archipelago, Dharma, centered on Svarnadvipa depicted in Borobudur is also perfectly preserved in Bali. Both are not based on any of the two Indian teachings, but underlie the three teachings that grew on there. By Santosaba.